Welcome back to Teen to ND. Most people think research starts in a lab, surrounded by high-tech equipment and stacks of data. For me, it started a lot closer to home. It all began with a small local problem, something that didn't seem important at first. It was just something I noticed in my own backyard, something that didn't quite make sense. I wasn't looking for a research question. I was just living my life, being curious. I saw something happening in my local environment, and I couldn't help but wonder why it was happening the way it was. That question, that little nagging feeling, stayed in the back of my mind for much longer than I ever expected. At first, I just brushed it off. I figured there had to be a simple explanation, and surely someone else had already figured it out. I mean, who was I to question it? But the more I tried to ignore it, the more questions popped into my head. Why does this keep happening day after day? What factors could be causing it? And why does it seem to affect some areas more than others? Curiosity has a funny way of lingering, especially when something feels unresolved. Instead of fading away, the question just got clearer and more defined in my mind. I eventually realized that I wasn't satisfied with just guessing anymore. I wanted to know for sure. I wanted evidence. Once I made the decision to actually look deeper, my entire perspective shifted. I stopped seeing this thing as just a random occurrence, a weird little quirk of my neighborhood. I started seeing it as something that could be measured, something that could be understood. I began observing more carefully, paying attention to the details I'd previously ignored. I started taking notes, writing down everything I saw. I looked for patterns. When did it happen? Where did it happen? What were the conditions like when it did? This simple act of paying attention, of gathering information, helped me move from being just casually curious to being an intentional investigator. That was the real turning point. The moment this local problem started to feel like real science. Now, one of the hardest parts of this whole journey was figuring out how to turn my jumble of observations into a single clear research question. When I first started, my questions were way too broad. I wanted to know everything all at once. But research doesn't work that way. Over time, and with a lot of trial and error, I learned that good research questions are specific. They have to be. They focus on one particular relationship, one specific variable. By narrowing down my question, I was able to make the problem manageable and much more meaningful. I started to realize that research isn't about having all the answers right away. It's about asking one good, focused question and then being willing to explore it honestly, wherever it leads you. Once I actually started digging into the research, things got messy and fast. I found conflicting information everywhere I looked. Some sources seemed to support my initial ideas, while others completely challenged them. It was really frustrating at first. I was expecting clarity, a straight path to the answer. Instead, I found a whole lot of confusion. But I slowly started to understand that this confusion is a normal, even necessary part of the research process. It means you're learning something new, something that's pushing the boundaries of what you already know. Instead of feeling discouraged by the complexity, I began to appreciate it. It was a powerful reminder that real-world problems are rarely simple. As I read more and more, I had a huge breakthrough. I realized my little local problem wasn't isolated at all. Similar issues were happening in other communities, even in different countries all around the world. What started as something small and personal was actually connected to these huge global scientific themes. Things like environmental factors, human impact, and biological responses. Suddenly, my small project felt so much more important. It showed me that the things we observe in our own lives, in our own neighborhoods, can be reflections of much larger, global patterns. My little question had plugged me into a much bigger conversation. Of course, there were plenty of moments when I doubted myself. I'd lie awake at night wondering if my question was even good enough. I questioned whether I, with no formal lab experience, was capable of doing real research. But with each small step forward, I started to build confidence. Every time I collected a new piece of data, analyzed a result, or refined my question just a little bit more, it was a small win, and those small wins mattered. They added up. I learned that research isn't about being perfect or knowing everything from the start. It's about being persistent. It's about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. This whole experience has completely changed the way I see science. Before, science felt distant, abstract. It was something that happened in textbooks or in fancy labs far away, done by people much smarter than me. But now, science feels personal. It feels connected to my everyday life. I've realized that anyone who asks questions, observes carefully, and seeks evidence is engaging in science. science isn't just reserved for experts in white lab coats. It starts with curiosity, with the desire to understand the world around you a little bit better. And even more than the final results, it was the process itself that taught me the most valuable lessons. I learned how to think critically, how to look at a problem from multiple angles. I learned how to handle uncertainty, how to be comfortable not knowing all the answers. Most importantly, I learned how to stay curious, even when the answers aren't immediate or easy to find. I also discovered that real meaningful learning often feels uncomfortable. It challenges your assumptions and requires a lot of patience. This project taught me more about myself than I ever expected it would. So what began as a small local science problem turned into something so much bigger. It became a genuine research question that pushed me to think deeper, observe more carefully, and trust my own curiosity. This experience showed me that meaningful research doesn't always start with some grand, world-changing idea. Sometimes it starts with just noticing something ordinary and asking, why? That one simple question changed how I see science, and honestly, how I see myself. And it reminded me that curiosity, when you really follow it, has the power to turn our everyday observations into real, incredible discovery. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to stay curious.